Mamma Mia. uh, I would think most people are familiar with this movie or the property, but it's basically the story of a bride to be trying to find her real father, told using hit songs by the popular 1970s group ABBA, starring Meryl Streep, Pierce Brosnan, Amanda Seyfried, Colin Firth, Stellan Skarsgård, and a whole bunch of people based on a musical. So this movie came out in 2008, I believe. And for those of you who've listened to this podcast before, you might know that I'm a huge Meryl Streep fan. This is probably one of her few movies that I never got on board with. I'd seen it before. I just found it kind of, I don't know, overwhelming in terms of its energy, at points even irritating in sort of how exuberant it is, and sort of just, what is the point of the whole thing? That's sort of the attitude I had toward this movie, even though I know that this is one of her biggest hits in her entire career and has spawned off a whole franchise, on a movie and an IP like this, which is like a jukebox property, which is so interesting in its own way. But there's something about revisiting this movie. When my boyfriend Robert was visiting from LA to San Francisco, we just put it on, and there's something about the joy of it and the absurdity of it and the laughter that it brought, that we enjoyed it so much, to the point that since we watched this movie, its soundtrack has sort of become, whenever we are feeling a little bit slow or there's a dead space in the day, this is the soundtrack we play to kind of just, get us out of that funk. Or, you're getting ready or packing up for a trip or what have you. This has kind of entered our lives in such a meaningful way. So I think, going back to your point around sort of reflections and taking a pause, to me, this movie is kind of the definition of that in a super literal sense, where a movie that I never cared for, just watching it with somebody who I love, but also in like a different context of, I suppose, the pandemic or being locked down, watching a movie that's set in, beautiful Greece, and the aspirational quality of travel, exploration, but then also sort of the unadulterated, pure joy, uninhibited, people leaping out of their beds and dancing kind of quality. There's something powerful about it, and I came around to it, which once again kind of is a symbol of just change and embracing the new reality and being okay to want to like and enjoy things that speak to you in the moment. So yeah, that's Mamma Mia, my number three.
Nice. This is yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I can see this fitting well into this year. So my background on this film, so I have seen it. When I remember the play, so when I was studying abroad in London, the play was there, and I thought I was very jaded at that time. You're in college, you're kind of negative and jaded anyway, and it was jukebox musical, so I definitely was dismissing it. I had never disliked ABBA in the way that for a while it was very cool to dislike them. I didn't carry that on with me, but I definitely carried into this movie that sense when I first saw this film, that sense of like, oh, this is a jukebox musical kind of throwaway, and it didn't really hit me when I did see it, and I haven't seen it actually since. And I think what you're saying about rewatching it under this different time, I think is something that I want to do actually. Now that you're talking about all the things this movie kind of captures are things that I feel may have been missing in 2021 a little bit, of that joy, that sense of travel. Like, we're still kind of dealing with this pandemic and things, and that might be the comfort that resonates a little. The movie, I think, would hit me differently now than it did before, when I was dismissing it as like, oh, this is just some cheap jukebox musical, that they're throwing a bunch of ABBA songs in there, and what is this really? Like, that was my attitude towards it before. It sounds like similar to yours originally too, and that your perspective has changed and this movie hit you in a different way.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because this movie originally came out post 9/11. And in fact, I've heard Meryl Streep talk about this movie and how it was, why she wanted to be a part of it in some way, because she saw the play or the musical right after 9/11. It was sort of a kind of a drug of relief and happiness to New York City. And she actually wrote to the production saying that, you guys have given, this is the quote if I'm remembering correctly, she said that you guys have given the city its dancing shoes back. And I think it's interesting how this movie, for me, kind of, not that we can compare the pandemic with 9/11, but sort of a global tragedy which has impacted so many people, watching this movie and how it has that power of being a bit of a drug or an antidote kind of lives on. And that's why it's so successful, you know?
Totally. That's a good throwback to when it originally came out. I think that definitely says something about what this film can do.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.